Hello. Today I'm here with you to talk about The Mysterious Island by Jules Verne. I'm sure you know the author of the 19th century. He wrote mysteries and adventure books, and a lot of his books were made into movies, as I'm sure you're aware. We're taken back to the 19th century, 1865, the Civil War or the Confederate War, in which, of course, there were the Unionists and also the rebels. So it seems that this group of ours, they're probably within the order of maybe 7 or 8 men, maybe some in that region. And they seem to be deserters or drifters, one of these. They're clearly not happy with being in the war, so I guess a lot of people do get moralized as soldiers, and they want to leave. Now there's a group of soldiers who are looking for them, and of course these guys try to hide within the woods and try to camouflage. Now, our group of, let's say, 8 or 9 people were hiding in the woods, but they eventually get found by the soldiers who are looking for them. Again, they are drifters and sort of deserters of the army, and of course that is a criminal offense. You can't just leave your post and go. Now, of course, they find them and a showdown begins. They fire at each other, and from, let's say, our original group of 8 or 9 people, 4 or 5 survive. Now, quite randomly, they find a balloon. I think this is not very unusual for the 20th or 19th century, or even later before that, maybe the 18th century. Because in the timeline of the story, which is 1856, perhaps that's the closest you got to an aeroplane. So they climb into this, and of course, while they're doing that, they're getting shot at by the soldiers who don't want them to leave. Of course, they've deserted the army, and also one of the it seems that one of the rebels is with them. So overall, at this point in the basket, or the passenger carrying basket, 5 people are left. So there is a sort of more elderly gentleman who gets shot by the rebel. The rebel is called Sergeant Johnny Rebel. So he's on the opposite side to, of course, this group who are from the Union. And in the Union, there are 4 people, Herbert, Captain Cyrus, Tom, and Ned. So as we go through the story, I will talk more about each of these personalities. So overall, in our balloon, there were 5 people remaining. 1 gets shot, so an elderly gentleman gets shot. We have remaining from the Union Army, we have Herbert, Captain Cyrus, Tom, and Ned, and also from the rebels, Sergeant Johnny Rebel. So effectively there were 6 initially in the basket, and 1 is killed by Sergeant Johnny. Now the remaining Unionists want to kill him too, but then Captain Cyrus, who's the leader of the group, says don't do it. Anyway, they managed to ascend against all odds, because, of course, they're getting shot at by the army, and with the sandbags that they release and probably a burner, they managed to ascend. Now, initial moments are fine. They managed to steer away from trouble, but then suddenly it's like the whole sky goes purple. So the whole sky is purple, and they don't know what happens. Suddenly they see this huge black hole, similar to a void, and they get sucked into this. The whole balloon gets sucked into it, and they lose consciousness. The next they know is that they're all on a supposedly deserted island. Well, it makes sense because the Warner balloon possibly maybe close to the sea, so maybe they were on the shorelines when they left, close to the sea, and they end up on an island. Now, just to give you a little bit more background about the personalities, the guy sleeping here is Sergeant Johnny Rebel, so he's from the rebels. He's on the other side of the Unionist. Now, from the Unionist army, we have 4 people remaining. I did say Herbert, Captain Cyrus is not here. They couldn't find him when they woke up. There's Tom and Ned. So, well, they're first looking around in anguish because they don't know what happened, and they're trying to see if everyone is there. They notice that Captain isn't there, but everyone else is fine. Initially, they just look around the shore to see if they can find anything else, any remnants of the balloon, maybe something that might be of use, maybe some food. Within a few hours, of course, then they are able to start with some essentials. So they start a fire, of course. And there's always this animosity between Johnny Rebel and the rest of the group. Well, here there's 3 because Captain can't be found. But of course, that's because they're from the opposite sides of the war, from the Unionists versus the rebels, right? So the 3 work together while Johnny Rebel, tries to fend for himself. Now, so the black gentleman is called Neb or Ned. I just call him Ned. And then there is there's Herbert and Tom. So Herbert is a very nice person, and we'll talk more about him, but he's this guy here in the bottom slide who's looking at the grass. They find drag marks. So it's like, okay, who has been dragged? It seems that we're the only people on the island. So who has been dragged in this direction? Initially, they think Johnny Rebel has maybe killed Captain and dragged his body somewhere. And he says, no, you saw me. I was sleeping on the shore, and I woke up the same time as you guys. So quite puzzled about what's going on. Now, as I mentioned, they accuse Johnny Rebel, who's this guy in the center, of killing Captain and Tom. So we'll talk about Tom in a minute. So while they're looking at catching fish and setting up a fire, Tom goes away, and they don't see him for a while. And soon after, when Herbert and Ned go looking for Tom, they find a dead body. So he's lost all his skin and whatever. So they find the body, and it really smells bad. So again, Johnny Rebel from the rebels gets accused of that. So they think he's killed Tom. They think he's killed the captain. And of course, it's a blame game, isn't it? Whatever goes wrong, they blame it on the person who they don't like. And you can't really blame them because they're enemies, aren't they? One, either side of the war, they don't trust each other. Of course, they have nothing in common either. So we're down to 3 people at the moment. Tom is dead for sure, so let's forget about Tom. The black gentleman is Ned, and this one that we can't see his face is Herbert. In the previous slide, he was looking at the drag marks. And Johnny Rebel, who's going to do his own thing, because of course he doesn't get along with the group. Now Johnny Rebel decides to go wander about the island and see what he can find, because of course he's on his own and the other two are working together. There's still no sign of Captain Cyrus, whereas they know that Tom is gone. So if Captain Cyrus is alive, there's going to be 3 of the Unionists and 1 Johnny Rebel. Now, quite randomly, he comes across a mansion. So this can't be a deserted island. He opens the front door and goes in. There's no one in the mansion, but he looks around for food, of course, and then he even takes a shower. Now, the other group, comprising Herbert and Ned, they're by the shore, and they're sort of just trying to figure out what they're doing. And all of a sudden, they see a plane above them. So while it's a volcanic island, and from time to time during the movie, you see that there's some shaking of the island due to the volcanic activities. And whenever you get one of these vigorous shakes of the island and due to volcanic eruption, you do see some really random stuff happen. So simultaneously with this vigorous shaking, they see, well, they don't know it's a plane, but they think it's a sort of flying locomotive, something that they don't have no idea what it is, but it flies above them and then crash lands. So this is probably good news because they know that Captain is alive. Captain is there, but he provides no explanation to where he has been. So when they landed, well, I guess they didn't even know that they landed in the island. They just woke up and they couldn't find any sign of their balloon. So started off 4 there, Captain was missing, and now Captain is back. So it seems that this purple light that they had seen before, when they got sucked into the void, is back, and somehow anytime you see this purple light, something really awful happens. In this case, it was the crash landing of, we know it's a plane, but they don't know what it's called. They call it a flying locomotive. They also quite randomly encounter these beasts, very vicious beasts that want to attack them. But they know that these beasts don't like fire, so they, of course, anywhere they go, they have these flames with them, and this scares off the beasts. Now, within this plane were 2 women. One is called Abby, the other is called Jules or Julia. So let's just call her Jules. Jules and Abby. So Jules is the girl with the long brown hair, and Abby is the sister with blonde hair wearing a blue dress. So again, a recap of the personalities left. On the right-hand side, you have Herbert. He's a very nice person. Then to his left is Abby. And then we have Jules, and the black gentleman is Ned. And then here you don't see his face, but he's Captain Cyrus. Now, the lady in the blue dress, Abby needs medical attention. Her knee hurts. Yes. Now, again, the group from the 3 men, of course, they are all from 1865, and they're completely puzzled about what this flying object was. Now, the girls, well, first they're disorientated because of the crash, but then, of course, they need help, and then Captain Cyrus says to them, "You were flying in this flying locomotive," and Jules, who's like the more sensible one of the 2 girls, says, "Flying locomotive, this is a plane." where are you from? Like, how come you have never seen a plane? And then Captain Cyrus says, I am from Boston, Massachusetts. So initially they don't know what has happened, and the girls find it quite odd that, they're saying such strange things, and like, what's a flying locomotive, and so on. They keep talking about stuff, and the more they talk, they realize that, gosh, something very unusual has happened, because the way that this group of men talk is like they don't have any idea about anything. They said that we left Richmond during the war in March, and the girl said, what are you talking about, March? It's July now. And then one of the girls asked, which war have you fled? And the men, and so specifically Captain Cyrus says, well, it's the war between the Union and the rebels. And they talk a little bit more, and they realize they're referring to the Civil War. Anyway, they do check the dates in which they left their respective sort of whatever city they left. Herbert and Ned and Captain Cyrus left the Civil War during March of 1865, and they won Richmond, whereas the girls, whatever city they left was in July 2012. So it seems that they're from different times, and somehow miraculously they've time traveled. Whatever it is, it has something to do with that void, the purple sky, and the void that they got sucked into. Now, so Jules is very intelligent, and she's also a very learned person, so she knows a lot about things. And they talk about the Bermuda Triangle. She thinks that so both groups have been sucked in by the Bermuda Triangle, and of course the group of men, the three men, don't know what she's talking about, and they ask, what is the Bermuda Triangle? And he says, and she says that this is a place where there's a void, and people and ships and planes and everything get sucked into, and they're never found again. So she reckons this is what happened to all of them. And also, she says that the Civil War ended, 150 something years ago, and now the country is called United States of America. And the men were very delighted to hear that, because they knew that the Unionists had won and the country stayed together as a union. So that was good news for them. Then, of course, they make their way to the mansion, where Johnny Rebel was already there, and he's in a bathtub, as I mentioned. He's taking a shower, and they walk into the shower, and he says, "Do you mind? I'm taking a shower." Anyway, they fill him in about what happened, and they get him up to scratch. And he's a bit of a bonehead man. He has a certain mindset about black people and women and so on. So people don't like him very much. Okay, but so they realize that they see certain signs that they're not on their own in the island. Well, of course, there are various beasts that attack them randomly wherever they find them. Their friend Tom has been completely devoured by whatever beast or entity that attacked him. There's a mansion built, so clearly human beings used to live there or still live there. And so these aggressive animals and beasts attack them all the time. But as I mentioned, the flare is very useful, and they escape if they see a flare. Now, so their immediate conclusion after a little bit of small talk is that they all want to leave the island as soon as possible. So they think of, brainstorm about what they can do, so what kind of escape routes might be possible. Now, I did mention Sergeant Johnny Rebel is not such a great man, even though he's from a long time ago, 150, 160 years ago, but still he's very backward. He disrespects Ned, who is black, and also the women in the group now. And then, of course, Jules is very outspoken, and she takes him aside and says, you know that the year I come from, we have a black president. So she is referring to Barack Obama, and he doesn't believe it. But of course, Ned is very thrilled to hear that. And she also says it's a free country. You can go to school, you can do anything you want, you can be a movie star. Women have the same rights as men, and so on and so forth. And of course, all stinky Johnny Rebel doesn't like that, because he's bigoted, and of course he likes the way things are, where he can feel superior to women and people of ethnic backgrounds. So we don't like him. I did mention Abby, who is the girl in the blue dress, was resting at home. Herbert is such a nice man. He stays at home to help her, and he gets water from the well. And again, we get another snap of the volcano erupting. So anytime there's an eruption and there's vigorous shaking of the island, something bad happens. So while the two people, so that's Abby and Herbert, are in the room, they hear footsteps. Now someone in boots approaches, and they hide under the bed. They see the boots, but they don't come out. Now, the rest of the group, so that's Johnny Rebel, Jules, Captain Cyrus, and Ned go looking for whatever they can find on the island. So they find a boat. Now, that could be a way they could potentially escape this island. Now, Johnny Rebel, who is a horrible person, we've already established that, he says, well, we should use this boat and just go right now. Let's go. And then, of course, the rest are in the house, so the least they can do is wait for the other two to make their way to the shores, and they maybe could all go together. Now, but then others argue that maybe this boat has an owner, and they're going to get into trouble, because they know very well that they're not alone on the island. Okay, so what they decide is that they'll go let the others know, and then set up camp by the shores near the boat, and establish if there is an owner. Otherwise, maybe the group of them can take the boats out of the island as an escape route. They also realized that their balloon, so that was the vessel they took to come here, is on the opposite side of the island. I did mention when the group of 4 actually woke up without Captain Cyrus, they were on the shores, but there was no sign of the balloon and no sign of Captain Cyrus either. So there were, and also we found some drag marks. So someone must have moved them to here, or so they don't know. And again, Abby and Herbert are at home, and they're hiding from this man in boots. And they decide to go and find the aeroplane. So, of course, the men from 1865 don't know what an aeroplane is, but now they know by what Abby and Jules have told them. But while they're doing that, then this nasty Sergeant Johnny Rebel goes on his own on the boat and tries to run away. Of course, everyone screams at him to come back, but he doesn't. So he's a very selfish person, as well as all his other great properties and characteristics. So then what happens? He's eaten by a giant octopus. So I think no one is going to shed a tear for him. He was a not so nice person throughout the movie, and he's gone now. Now, the rest of the group go back to the plane. They're trying to see if they can find something useful. They find Abby's makeup bag, so so they take that home. And while they're just talking about the plane, they get attacked again by a group of men this time. They don't know who the men are, but they manage to neutralize the attack and hurt the men. And then suddenly, while they were in a commotion and fight, this man shows up with this device, and he points it at the attackers, and they suddenly disappear. So very useful tool for fights. If you can just make your opponents disappear, that would be great. Anyway, he's an elderly gentleman. You see his picture, and he introduces himself as Captain Nemo. And now this group, they're quite intelligent, so both Captain Cyrus is intelligent, and also Jules. She knows a lot about things. And they recognize Captain Nemo from the book. And he says that I've been here for 20 years, and I used to have a crew, and we built the mansion over the submarine and so on, but the crew died. Now, and of course the group talk about how they got there, and Captain Nemo knew because he was spying on them all the time. He had binoculars, and he was and sometimes you get the view of someone looking at them with this binoculars, but he didn't know who it was up until now. Anyway, Captain Nemo invites them back to the mansion for tea. And he did say that the submarine, or Nautilus, is located below the mansion. And he does lead them to this mansion, and he says there's quite a strong electromagnetic field all around the island, so any electrical object will lose its activity and die. And he just goes on about his background. His family were killed by the British Empire. So again, British Empire sounds something very historic. So he's probably from the 17th or 18th century, or maybe 19th. We don't know. And then he was also a scientist, and he did discover time travel. But then when he used it, he got lost in time. Now he really opposes using this again, the time machine, and advises them that there's no way off this island. He's tried everything, and he just lost all his crew, and nothing good came out of it. So Jules and also Captain Cyrus, although are very intelligent and enthusiastic, and they're eager to leave. So they keep throwing around ideas about how they could leave. So maybe they could upgrade the balloon with the time machine and leave that way. Captain Nemo is pessimistic. Meanwhile, we see Abby, who's just got her makeup case, and she looks a lot more thrilled now that she has her face back, and she's talking to Herbert and to Ned. The group set to work, and they are working on upgrading the balloon. So the girl is working on the parachute, Jules is working on the parachute and different things. So they go and take some items from the aeroplane, some mechanical sort of equipment that they can maybe use with a time machine in the balloon. And suddenly the group gets attacked by the savages, and this is the aftermath of the volcanic eruption. So we know anytime there's a volcanic eruption, something bad happens. This time it's the unleashing of the savages. And during this altercation, unfortunately, we lose Herbert. Then, so the group is only now comprising of the two girls, Abby and Jules, Captain Cyrus, and also Ned, because we've lost Herbert. Now, Captain Nemo does not want to leave, and also he suffers from severe consumption, tuberculosis, and he's not going to go anywhere, but he tries to help them as much as possible. So apparently the time machine is close to the volcano. There's a cave nearby, and that's where he hid it. They go to the volcano, they find the time machine, and run back to the balloon. But again, things deteriorate really fast. We have, of course, we have Captain Nemo, who's probably in the last few hours of his life, and the beasts that are attacking them now, left, right, and center, because it's just getting to that boiling point that everything in the island is going to get destroyed. They have assembled the time machine onto the balloon. Now it's time for liftoff, but they realize that is too heavy. So that before they had sandbags, and so they tried that, and they tried getting rid of other things. And then the four remaining people, so the two girls and Captain Cyrus and Ned, and then Captain Cyrus says, I'm going to stay on the island, and you three should go. And everyone refuses to accept that and say, we either all go together or we perish on the island. Anyway, they manage to lose a few more items, and they ascend. And they activate the time machine, and suddenly we again see that purple sky and the void. So definitely they've left the island, but we don't get to know where they go. We just see that they were in the galaxy somewhere, and that's the end of the movie. I hope you liked it.